Mister, how do you operate this Twitter thing or this Instagram thing or whatever the heck? You're supposed to know all this stuff. Anyway, welcome back to the show.
Well, you can follow us on Twitter, and the IDs you need are at SNWMN Multimedia and at official SITM Moran. Our merchandise has been launched. You can go to snowmanmultimedia.net, note the new address, and check out some of our best gear. And we got more coming, believe me. On this Saturday special, I welcome a very dear friend, and I got to know her from her blog, Token Female, and also got to know her covering my beloved Chicago Sky of the WNBA for 4 seasons. And she has been all over the place when it comes to Chicago women's sports. Token Female ran on Internet FM from 2006 to 2010, and then she had a 12-year run on Chicago Now from 2010 to 2022. It covered women's sports and women's issues following the growth of the WNBA and the NWSL professional women's sports leagues, as well as the National Professional Women's Softball League. She's covered NCAA championships and regular season games, and she's just been all over the place, and she's a very dear friend of mine. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the one, the only, Alison Moran. Good morning, my dear. How are you?
Good morning, Brian. I am doing fantabulous this morning. I am so happy. Great to be with you.
Great to have you here. It's been a long time since we got together on the air. Now, I remember the first time it happened, I ran into a few technical difficulties. Oops.
Yes. Oopsie. Yes. Did it ever air? I don't even know.
It did. It actually did. It actually did. You know what happened? I was doing it at Starbucks in Chicago, in downtown Chicago at the time, and there was a hitch in the internet. So that went splat, and then my program went splat for about 10 minutes.
Oh man, that's the story of my life with guesting, I think.
Yep.
You know, that we're so dependent on this technology to make sure that everything works, and sometimes it just doesn't. That's happened to me on different shows that, you know, what do you do? It's, we're dependent on testing our technologies before they go out. You can have a glitch, you know, nothing's the same, you know, every show is different for that reason, but you roll with it, right?
You absolutely do. Tell me how you got Token Female started.
Well, Token Female started as a result of Steve Leventhal at Internet FM. Decided to create a women's sports column and approached me to do it. I had worked for him prior. I'd been covering a whole bunch of college games for him. I'd been to the Alamo Bowl for him, and I'd also done several different games at the University of Illinois to get audio and to do raps and things like that. And so he remembered me from doing that and thought I would be just the perfect person to cover women's sports. I think it was because I was his only female employee at the time. So, of course. And I actually hadn't covered women's sports at that time. And I was like, really? Oh, yeah, this should be interesting. So he said, call the column whatever you want. You know, he's starting this blog for all sports, and he had recruited a number of people to cover in different states, you know, covering like Los Angeles and Minneapolis and such. And so he had come into contact with me for that. And he said, call it whatever you want. And I said, well, how about this? I'm usually one of maybe 2 or 3 women, if I'm lucky, in the press clubs and in the media rooms and things like that. Let's call a token female. So I did that blog for a very long time, for about 15 years. And so I started with the Chicago Sky and covering that on a regular basis from 2007 onwards, and to this day, I'm still there at the press conferences, and I'm still there whenever humanly possible. I was very fortunate to cover their championship run, and it's just been a ball of a career. So there's no time like now. This is the moment for the WNBA, the moment I'd prayed for at least 28 seasons, if not better.
Yeah, they have a talent now by the name of Caitlin Clark, who could finally make this league explode. This, for me, this is akin to two situations in the NBA. Magic and Bird's arrival in 1979, and know where I'm going, when the King, Michael Jordan, arrived in 1984. This is that moment for the WNBA, because when Caitlin Clark announced that she was going to declare for the WNBA draft and the Indiana Fever got hold of it, it was crazy. I'm an hour south of Indianapolis, but the news got to me the same day she made the announcement. So my crew was all over it. Then she was drafted by the Indiana Fever. Every game is sold out. So good luck getting a ticket there. I am covering the Fever this year. I'm also going to do some virtual play-by-play for them. But if there was a time,
I can't help you. I can't help you on this. I'm kidding you.
Listen, don't tempt me, because I'll find a way to do it. This is the technology age. You know that.
Yeah.
You know that. I'll find a way to get it done.
Yeah.
But this is a great time for them, is it not?
It absolutely is. I tell you, this is a moment for women's sports as we've never seen before. And I'll tell you why it's happened as well. The reason why it's happening is that you have a group now who have been playing because of Title IX. Because of that ruling back in 1972. They haven't known life without women's sports as I have. They have not known life without playing, playing a very competitive game, playing a complete game. There has not been that moment ever in the history before this. And it's due to a generation that has grown up playing in, the Pee Wee leagues and having those, say the Bull Sox academies in this world, and all of the training that they've been able to do. They've been able to do it, and they are riding on the shoulders of people like Cheryl Swopes and Cynthia Cooper and Rebecca Lobo and all those who came before. And, Diana Taurasi, now ancient, but still a damn fine player. You have not seen this moment, but they are building to this moment where women's basketball is the conversation. It's the moment. And there's one player that really lifts all boats, and that's Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark is an incredible player and an even more incredible person. I mean, if she's on the floor, she's in range. All right. And I've seen it up close and personal the last 2 seasons in covering Iowa women's basketball. I'll say it again. If there's a time for the WNBA to capitalize, it's with this draft class. Caitlin Clark, Camila Cardoso, Angel Reese. And Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark are in the same conference. And I know Angel's going to get better with her game. But can you imagine those two being Aiken to Magic and Bird from 1979 and what they did
Oh
for the
yeah,
NBA?
they did. Yeah, they were Showtime, man. They were Showtime. And by the way, you can see them head to head June 23rd
Yep.
at Wintrust Arena. Good
Yep.
luck getting a ticket, but by all means, scalp, buy, whatever you have to do. That is going to
Mhm.
be the matchup. It's going to
It is.
be the best. Angel is such a rare commodity. She
Mhm.
has the sass, she has the chops, she's got the game. She's going to need to step up though in terms
Mhm.
of her overall performance. She's
Right.
got to learn the WNBA way.
Mhm.
It's been hard for a lot of stars, and there's a reason why she was not drafted ahead of Camila Cardoso, who's out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And
Mhm.
I'm sad about that because
Yeah.
I was looking forward to her being such a great presence on the floor and somebody that the Sky really needed to,
Yeah.
you know, they've lacked what Camilla can give to them. And so I'm sad about that. But Angel will be a true player in every sense of the word for the Chicago Sky. I
I
just,
mentioned this.
yeah,
I
go ahead.
mentioned this on my special last night and throughout the week on Snowman in the Morning. Imagine if Indiana and Chicago met in the East Finals this year. We
Love to
already
see.
know Gainbridge Fieldhouse is going to be a sellout. I wouldn't be surprised if they finagle away to the United Center for 2 games there, possibly 3 or 4, depending on how they finish. But an East
Th-
Final with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, you
I'd go
can't tell me
for it.
that won't be off the charts.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I could see a United Center for that. I could definitely see where, they could fill that 18,000 person
Easy.
space. Yeah. And the tickets would go for as much as the women's finals this year. What was it? 4,000 a ticket
4 grand.
at,
4 grand.
at the pardon me?
4 grand.
4
4 grand
grand.
a pop.
Do you know this makes up for all the times that I fought to get women's sports to the front of the NCAA championships when I was on with Les Grobstein and Steve Leventhal on the Weekend Sports Report way back between 2009 and 2012. Back then, it was an argument that
Mhm.
that women's sports would draw. Uh, this generation might not know that, but this was the case. I fought to talk about players like Candace Parker. I fought to talk about players like that particular group, Courtney Vandersloot,
Courtney Vandersloot.
Elena Deladonna, Allie Quigley, Joliet Catholic alum, for God's
Joliet
sake, a
Catholic
DePaul
man. Allie
alum. Man, it's like, okay, we can talk about them later. We can talk
Mhm.
about them maybe, next week. And let's talk now how great that they're going to be and how great they're going to be for the game. Please. And, that's why this moment is so important because if you go back to the Mighty Macs of who won the first AW championship, I think it was called at the time,
Mhm.
NCAA didn't even claim them until 1982.
Yep.
Okay, women were not an official NCAA championship until 1982, and the Mighty Macs won 74 through 77. This is for all the people who have completely underestimated the power of women and women's sports.
It really is. Ray Hamna joins us. He says, peace and blessings. Thank you for that. Andrew Downing also joins us. The big dog, my producer, Shane Lake, is also in the building checking this out. I got hooked on women's basketball in 1982 when they had their first women's Final Four. It was on CBS, and Frank Lieber called the action, and they had the women's final the first 2 years at the Scope in Norfolk, Virginia.
Holy
I've been
cow.
hooked on it since. My first year of calling women's basketball came at Chicago State in 1996. And then I started doing women's high school basketball that same year. And you talked about DePaul. I've been to many a DePaul women's game, but there is a DePaul alumnus who I love very dearly, and I call her I call her my little sister, Shanice Jackson.
Yeah.
Who was the Big East Player of the Year. And I said way back when she was at Whitney Young, you know, giving DeFron Smart all kinds of blues, and I mean that in fun because they were the two fastest players on the team.
Yeah.
That Shanice was going to be something else. And everyone looked at me like I'd lost my mind. I said, watch. By the end of her career, she's going to be gathering so many accolades and leading this DePaul team. When the announcement came that she had been voted the Big East Women's Player of the Year, my phone went sideways with everybody calling me saying, how did you know this? I told you. I watched her at Whitney Young when she was the only player in practice to give DeFron Smart the blues.
I love that. That is great. What a thrill, though. You know, to think. I wish that there had been more accolades for her. Yes. Honestly, there were only so many available at the time, and it would be great. What's she doing now?
She was playing overseas for a bit. Now I believe she's coaching. I believe CJ is coaching. And speaking of coaching, let me congratulate the legendary Corey Irvin on being hired at Chicago State to lead that team. I may have to place a call with them and be their voice again, because I did it I was Chicago State women's voice for 15 years.
Wow.
15 seasons I was there, and I got asked all the time.
Years and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yep. I went through that, and I got asked all the time, why do you still cover women's basketball there? Because I love women's basketball. I love women's sports.
Yeah. And
I love women's sports.
Absolutely. And, you know, the thing is, the Caitlin Clark effect is also going to the other sports as well. This year, the Chicago Red Stars are going to be playing at Wrigley Field.
Yes.
You heard about that. And on June 8th. And by all means, this is the moment to do that kind of a thing. It really helped that Laura Ricketts is now one of the owners. As you know, the Ricketts family owns the Red Stars as well as she's actually a part owner of the team, and I'm looking forward to seeing the Wrigley Field absolutely alive with soccer fans of all kinds.
40,000 soccer fans at Wrigley Field. I'll take it.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll take it. I'll take it in a heartbeat. 40,000 fans. Man.
Yeah.
A full house at Wrigley Field, because if they can get a full house for the Stadium Series like they had at Wrigley Field in 2009 with the Red Wings and the Blackhawks, and then 5 years later at Soldier Field, 60,000 people there for the Penguins and the Blackhawks in a snowstorm that no one expected, because earlier that day it was like 60 some odd degrees, and by the time they dropped the puck for the face-off, there's snow in my face.
Exactly.
And everybody in Chicago is going, where'd the 60 degrees go? Blackhawks won that game 6-2. And the strange thing is, and you know this about Chicago weather, that weekend, that Friday, it was gorgeous. It was 70 degrees. was told 62 degrees before face-off. So people were getting a contingent in place in case there was a problem with the ice and things like that. They didn't need it.
I know.
Because by the midway through the first period, the snow was pouring in buckets.
That's right.
And there was then Jonathan Tays lit the net, Patrick Kane lit the net, Duncan Keith lit the net twice, and before the Penguins knew what was going on, the ice was covered with snow. It was 6-2 Blackhawks by the time the final horn sounded, and both teams are walking off the ice going, "What the hell happened?" Then they deconstructed the place, and the next day it was 70 degrees again.
That's so crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's the glory of being a Chicagoan, Snowman, as you well know. It's what it is. And the best thing about that game was that the Hawks were the ones who had the control, and they were able to adjust their game and not let stuff like that rattle them. And that's the reason why they were so dominant in that game. It was fabulous. I watched it from my little perch in Waukegan, where I was doing producing and sidekicking and things like that for WKRS AM 1220 back in the day, and it was hilarious. It was so much fun, and that's Chicago too, and the fans stayed.
Yes,
Am I right?
They stayed. 60,000 for that game, and nobody moved.
Isn't that crazy?
Like every Hawk fan in the house knew that something weird was going to happen. All right, and nobody moved.
Exactly.
It's like we're in a Bears game. Okay, the snow. It's like the Bears in 1985 when they played the Los Angeles Rams for the NFC Championship. Everybody waiting for the weather to come. It didn't come until the fourth quarter when the Bears were up 17-0, but it still came. Then the final touchdown happened, and the entire city went nuts.
Yes, exactly. Because we got it handled. That's why.
Yep.
I'm remembering the first day that the Red Stars played.
Mm-hmm.
Were you at that game by chance back in 2009?
I didn't get a chance to be there. To be there. But I remember the fights you always had with Grobstein and company, because we used to talk about it a lot on the air on my morning show. You had to fight. I had to fight. I'm one of the rare males that fought to get women's sports covered.
And that's why we're friends, Bri.
Yep. And you've seen the fights that I have. I would write to people and say, "Look, you got to put this on," and they look me in my face like I was crazy. And then I covered the Chicago Sky, and my phone blew up. I know you can have this now. Where were you 5 years ago when I started this?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, let's be totally real. Where were you in 1996 when I was at Chicago State and no one wanted to come out there?
Exactly. And it's crazy. I remember pitching the Chicago Sky to several of my radio outlets and my news app outlets, and who will remain nameless, but I've been in this business a long time. There was one I will give credit for that never argued, but that was because I had a wonderful program director who did argue for me. And that was the late Paul Lepic at WRLR FM. And he gave me free rein to talk about whatever I wanted to on the air for my sports commentary, which ran from 2014 to 2016, 2012, excuse me, because I started there after I finished at WKRS, and he was like the morning anchor there. So he was the only one of all of my all of my outlets that said a solid yay to Chicago Sky. Now they are all vying for credentials to cover the Sky. Why?
Look, they weren't there when you and I were fighting like hell to get there to cover the Sky, especially when they made their first WNBA Finals appearance in 2014.
Oh, I remember that well.
There were so many extra measures put in place because it was the first appearance by the Sky in the finals. They beat Indiana to get there. They wiped out the Indiana Fever to get there because they won once in Chicago and they won once in Indianapolis and swept that series.
Yes.
When the news came down of all the extra measures they were taking, and they had to switch arenas. They had to play at the UIC Pavilion for the middle two games because of a scheduling conflict.
Right, yeah, with the Allstate Arena where they were playing.
Man, we got word early that they were switching arenas, and we also got word that we had to follow WNBA protocol and put in our credentials online. We were the first to do that. You know, your group and my group were the first to do that, and all my friends are looking at me going, "How did you score that?" I covered them all year.
I remember taking time off from my day job to go cover and to make sure.
I remember that.
Yeah,
they were playing the Phoenix Mercury. The middle two games were at UIC Pavilion, and I remember you telling me, "I'm taking time off from my day job because I got to go cover these games." I said, "I'll meet you there, okay?" And it was a madhouse.
It was a madhouse. It was great. I loved it. And talking to BG at the time, Brittany Griner, who was 2 seasons in at the time, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, and having her against Elena Deladonna, and I mean, you had so many giants, so many people who are future Hall of Famers, and it was the most fabulous time to be doing this. And, I think that actually that particular draft, those particular players really put Chicago Sky and Phoenix Mercury on the basically on a path to where they are both today. I think that that actually showed that women's basketball could be exciting. There used to be a knock that women couldn't dunk. Well,
Lisa Leslie took care of that. Brittany Griner took care of that. Candace Parker took care of that. And I saw Candace Parker play at Naperville Central. She visited when the boys were playing their city semifinals at UIC Pavilion, and there was a lot of buzz around me. I had the headset on. I'm getting ready for halftime. There was a lot of buzz around me. I get a tap on the shoulder, and someone said, "Look behind you." I turn around, and there's Candace Parker.
I love it.
Like, what? Candace Parker is here? Yeah, you want her for an interview? Don't play with me. We'll get her for an interview. I'm like, if you are playing with me, I will break every protocol I have in a suit and tie, and I will clothesline you. 30 seconds later, I get another tap on the shoulder. I turn to my right, and Candace Parker's sitting down. What?
I love it.
It's just the lead in to what can happen with the WNBA, because now they're sitting on a draft class that can produce something they've always needed, and that's a ton of money.
Yes.
You're drafting players now from the NIL era that already have the money socked away from their partnerships. Caitlin Clark is leading the way. She's already got partnerships signed with Nike. I think Gatorade's coming. State Farm is there. Is with her also. They can so harness all of that and stock away a ton of money that would keep them going beyond 30 years. Because when we celebrated the WNBA's 25th season, and I remember you and I talked about it, when we
Mhm.
celebrated their 25th season, we were wondering how it was going to turn out. What kind of
Yeah.
celebration do they have in mind? And then the 25 greatest players came out, which was perfect timing because they did it at the All-Star break. And
Mhm.
that season later came to a close. And I want to tell you something on the air that I never got a chance to tell you. You've asked me several times if you could help me cover women's sports. My answer is yes. I have a spot for you if you want it. And I am totally serious because I'm rebuilding my website now. I know I want to cover a lot more women's sports, but I need the help. And
Mhm.
you're in my hometown. One of the sports I'm going to do virtual play-by-play for that I haven't done in a long time is volleyball.
Oh wow.
I'm going to sink my teeth into women's college volleyball. I'm doing women's college basketball while I'm here in studio, and I'm looking forward to getting back at the table when I completely heal.
Mhm.
And my wife, Jody, asked me, what's one thing you want to do when you completely heal? I want to put the headset back on live on site. And she told me, you
Mhm.
can do that, but you got to get your practice in while you're here in studio and while you're healing. And it
Mhm.
was my wife who told me from the first year we met, she says, that's your niche. Women's sports is your niche.
Mhm.
All right,
That's
Jody,
right.
baby, you're on. And I'd love to
So
have you. When I cover Fever games and I do virtual play-by-play, and I mean this from the heart, I'd love to have you. I mean it.
you're talking about Jody or me?
I'm talking about you.
Me? Oh,
I'd
cool.
love to have
Sure.
I'd love to have you as my color commentator.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Yeah, that'd be lovely.
Look,
That'd be lovely.
we've been friends
Yeah,
for 11 years.
we
Why
have
wouldn't
been.
we
Yeah.
do? We've been friends for
Yeah,
11 years. Why wouldn't we
sure.
do? Why can't we do this?
We can. We can.
So
Absolutely. Send the
on the
contract to
air,
my office. Okay.
you she says
You
that
got it.
she says that as she knows I'm just getting restarted in this
I
after all of
know.
my health problems the past 2.5 years. But I mean it from the
Absolutely.
heart. I'd love to have you as my broadcast partner doing
I
women's
love.
play-by-play.
Aren't you a doll? Well, yeah, sure. Sure. I'd
All
be
right,
happy to do it. I
y'all
love
heard it.
it. I
Y'all heard
love
it
it.
here first. The first game that we
Absolutely.
have on the docket is Tuesday when the Fever make their regular season debut at the Connecticut
Mhm.
Sun. That's a
Mhm.
7:30 Eastern time tip, 6:30 Central. We'll go up at 6 p.m. with the pregame show. I will put all the peripherals in place and let's do it. I mean it. Let's do it.
Perfection. Sure, sure. We'll do it. We'll do it. You let me know.
You
Just
got it.
give me, yeah, yeah. PM me, and
You got it.
we'll make it happen.
You
So
got
it's
it.
a perfect time in my career at the moment, and I too needed to take some time. I had a husband who passed away last year, and so and
And I
so
met him, and he was as goofy as me, and I loved every minute of it.
he was a doll, and
He was wonderful, and
yeah, Ted Powers,
he
yeah,
cheered you on as much as Jody cheers me on, and that
he
is one
did,
thing I adored about you two.
yeah,
That's one thing I adored about him because I met him at Starbucks when you came in, and
yeah.
you went to get a drink, and he just put his arm around me, and he just had this smile from ear to ear. And I said, that's one thing I want. Well, now
Yeah.
I have it with my beautiful wife, Jody.
God
So,
love you.
Jody, honey,
I'm
I'm taking your advice and I'm going to sink my teeth into women's sports this year. This will be my 29th year doing broadcasting.
oh,
29 years.
that is awesome. I
I've
got you beat
been,
by like 2 years, I
yeah, I
think.
know. I've been
Yeah,
all over, just like you, I've been all over the place. I started in
yeah.
Chicago. I've been in
Hmm.
Indiana for a while. I did some broadcasting up in Minnesota. I was in Columbus, Ohio, even down to North Carolina where I lived for 2 years.
Man,
29 seasons behind the microphone. I couldn't believe we
how
would get.
awesome!
How
How
awesome is
awesome!
that?
Oh,
And
that is the
this
best.
September, and I'd love to have you for this. I want to have you as a regular correspondent for my show. I mean
Sure.
it. I
Yeah,
mean it.
I'm here.
And this September, And I love to say this when people thought I wouldn't last this long. This September will start our 11th season of Snowman in the Morning.
Wow. That's
11
amazing.
years.
See? And probably you had a lot of naysayers at the beginning saying, "Oh, Brian,
Yep. You've seen half of them at Sky Games with us.
I know.
You've seen half of them walk up to us and go, "Why don't y'all do something else?"
Yeah,
like, what?
This will never
is too much fun.
That's every success story that I've ever known is having the perseverance, just like the WNBA did, like David Stern did.
Yes.
The great and late David Stern, when he started the WNBA, and Chicago wasn't on that original roster of cities, and it was sad. And I'm like, the second largest city should have it. The big sports town that Chicago is needed the Sky, and so
they needed. And now 2 finals appearances and a championship later, they're a team to be looked at, especially now with the draft class that they have. You want to know why there were a lot of naysayers to us, especially when cover women's sports? It's pretty simple. They don't think they can bring in the money. You don't have the right people covering it. How about that?
How about this too? And that is just like the NBA. It's progressive growth.
Yes.
I've explained this 100 times, and they're not buying it in an age that, in an age that includes as many media platforms. But here's the thing, is that you're finding the generation that grew up with women on a relatively equal level with men, and being thought of as, not those sweet little girls. It became, instead of you play like a girl, to play like a girl. And that's a command and a compliment at the same time. And no longer is it a situation where it's an insult to say play like a girl. And that started changing maybe in the last 5 years. And and that's because the generation, as I said before, that grew up with Title IX fully in place, is now being young adults and having their say and having their moment. And that's why this moment is important. But in the WNBA in particular, this is a progression the same way the NBA progressed. They were on the verge of extinction before Showtime came in with Bird and Magic. They were before the shot clock. It was a very.
Remember, the NBA was a league that had Bill Russell, it had Jerry West, and before Magic and Bird showed up, it also had Julius Erving, because they just merged with the ABA. But it took Magic and Bird to save them in 1979, and then some guy named Michael Jordan showed up in 1984, and we all know what happened with that. You have the same situation right now. And to go back to what you and I had talked about many, many times off the air, and folks, Alison will tell you, there are many times I wanted to just hang up this microphone, and she said, "No, you don't. Your time's coming." Yeah. You know how much money is sitting on the table? We just have to go get it.
Yeah. And it will come.
I know it will. You and I covering the WNBA is going to bring in some money. I know it will. I know it, and I believe it. You got contacts up there in Chicago. I'm making some down here, and why can't we reach out and just get local sponsors and say, "Look, just help us out with this, and it'll grow from there." And I know it will.
Every year it grows a little bit more. Every year
Yes.
you see more sponsors
Hmm.
coming into the WNBA. With the NILs
Oh my
starting
gosh.
in college, I mean, that was a renaissance
Yes.
for college basketball players that they'd never seen before.
No.
And the thing is, that makes a sponsor so much more comfortable. They've already seen the goods, and
Hmm.
in those D1 programs, it'd be great if it's kind of filters down to the D2 and the D3 levels
I'd
at
love to
some
see that
point.
happen.
I
I'd
me
love to. I'd love to see that because I've covered D1 women's hoops for the bulk of my career. I've also done
mhm.
D2, D3, and junior college. It needs to filter down that way also,
It will.
so
It
those
will.
kids can get a chance.
It it will.
I know it will.
I I had I had friends who were sponsored for like their uniforms or their shoes and things like that, even when I was in college. And I was like, boy,
Hmm.
you can get all those free warm up suits, man. You can get the right shoes and things like that. And I mean,
Hmm.
that was a long time ago, but it's so again, it's a progression that we will see coming as long as we continue to promote it, as long as the consistency of the product remains high, as long
Absolutely.
as there's the right practice facilities. you
Hmm.
know Title 9 just said equal facilities, equal
Hmm.
education for men and women,
Yeah, they did.
equal opportunities for all, and it was applied to sports. It does not say sports in Title 9, but you'll
Right.
see it. You will see it coming, though. Um, and and now, uh, being that there is a progression of um, of money and of talent and into the WNBA, all of
Hmm.
this, the rising tide lifts all boats,
Yes.
and that's and so the rising tide is here. The rising tide is now, and this is going to be the most amazing season for not only the WNBA but for the NWSL and for the other women's sports that are up and coming. I sincerely hope someday that we're going to get a professional softball league back. Um,
I would love
'Cause
if they
yes,
bring a professional softball league back. I'm going to consistently write to their commissioner and their media person and say, look, I'm a veteran voice. I know women's softball. Put me and Allison in the booth.
there you
And bring
go.
Jo-
Yeah,
and bring
yeah.
Jo- and
That-
bring Jody along for the fun. She'll be my booth producer. I mean, Jody's my booth producer anyway on the
yeah.
road doing any sports because she's the one that keeps me in check to make sure I have everything. And I'll close with this fun story. She helped me cover Michigan City football in
Mhm,
2018 when we first met.
mhm.
And I was not completely organized. Well, Jody took care of that when she started coming to games. When she started coming to games with me, when they played Maryville, when Michigan City played Maryville. Now you know me. You've done
Yeah,
games with me. I drink a lot
yeah.
of water because
Yes,
I
you
use my
do.
voice a lot. I drink a lot of water. They didn't have any water in that booth in Maryville.
What?
That booth was full of caffeine.
Oh my gosh. That's
And
going to dehydrate you.
I got there early hoping that they would have changed their ways. Nope. There was a ton of Pepsi, there was a ton of Diet Pepsi, and I'm going, what the hell am I gonna do? I
Uh-huh.
got a 3-hour broadcast because my pregame was 30 minutes, my postgame was 30 minutes. I said, all right, I'll take the hit.
Mhm.
You know how tired I was when I climbed out that booth?
Oh, I bet.
I
Yeah.
had the high when I was doing the game and Michigan City won. Um, my roommate Josh said, I'll get you back to the hotel. But then Jody calls me and said, I'll meet you at the hotel and we'll get the hell out of here.
Smart.
She asked me to drive, and I was about to crash. I really was. And she said, and she said, okay, let me get you some chocolate. Would that help? Yep, didn't help. I drove like a mile and a half. We switched places, and the next thing I knew, I was zonked out.
I believe it.
So the next week, she told me, she says, make sure you get water. So I made sure I had like 2 60-ounce bottles of water. And every time and like I said, she's my booth producer. She makes sure everything is organized and that I'm organized off the air. Every time it came to a break, she would just point to the water bottle and say, drink.
Yeah. She sounds like my 19-year-old kid. My 19-year-old kid, Lev does the same thing for me now, and they're a force to be reckoned with. And
they are.
Oh yeah. Well, we need the people to take care of us, right?
Indeed.
We need while we do our thing. It's very important that you have the proper support at home and the proper support on the air, and you can go far. And it just is really a situation where without that support, you and I would be thirsty, tired, and left to our own devices, right?
And those devices aren't good to turn at times when we're left to our own devices. They are not good at all.
No. That's why I'm so grateful for my 19-year-old. And
I'm grateful for my wife and my family. I am so grateful for them.
I can't wait to meet Jody.
You will.
She has been just a terrific force in your life. I've seen the changes. You look so much healthier than when I first met you, and so much happier as well. And I'm just so grateful that the good Lord saw fit to give you health and to give you basically a great shot at love and happiness, and you deserve all of it.
Thank you.
You are my brother.
Well, yeah, you are my sister, and I adore you dearly. And I can't wait to Tuesday night. Our check-in time is 6:30. We'll go with the pregame at 7, and tip-off is at 7:30. Caitlin Clark and the Fever take on the Connecticut Sun in Connecticut. Boy, that's gonna be a great time. That's gonna be a great time. Can't wait for it.
It sure will be. It's going to be fabulous. I'm looking forward to it. Understand. Caitlin is coming off of a 12-point performance against the Liberty, but
she's due for 40.
Yeah, she is. Well,
she's
believe
due
me,
for 40.
Yeah, she had 21 points in the opener, but they lost.
Right.
And then against the Liberty, they won. And so now, we'll see what happens when the WNBA is at full strength, and that they've got their rosters. I will tell you, the defense is going to be fierce.
It is.
Double, triple teams. I predict that Clark is going to have to do a lot of outside shots, much more so. I think the first couple of times up and down the floor, she's going to have to learn how regular season WNBA is. But once she finds that groove, look out. We've seen it. Once she finds that groove, look out. All right, we're coming up against the break, but this is my dear friend Alison Moran. You can see and hear her Tuesday night with me when we do some virtual play-by-play for the Indiana Fever. We're going to do as many games as we can this year between the Fever and the Sky. I will just say we're going to be busy, and I will also say this: if y'all want to support, drop a subscribe to youtube.com/@Snowman Multimedia.
And if you want to help my family, and this is ongoing, you can drop a cash app to $Tallman Dr. K 50. Mike Debate is on the way to talk draft grades, but Alison and I are going to do a lot of women's sports coverage when the launch of snowmanmultimedia.net happens this week. The token female has returned. Thank you, Alison. I appreciate you, dear.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me. I look forward to this season. It's going to be fabulous. Thank you, Brian.
It is indeed going to be fabulous. We got some more stuff for you folks on this Saturday special of Snowman in the Morning. Back after this.